Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Dana and this is Delighted to DIY. If you like thrift flips and budget home decor DIYs, why don't you consider hitting that red subscribe button. For DIY number one, I thrifted these 3 farm animal hooks for, I think it was $1, maybe 2. Let's meet in the middle and say $1.50. They were porcelain, ceramic, not too sure what it was, but the paint was coming off of the cow. It was a little grungy, and the chicken was okay, and the duck was okay, but I thought I could touch them up a little bit, and because these are quick flips, I'm not doing too much to them, but I started with the Rust-Oleum 2x matte white spray paint and gave them 2 good coats, letting it dry in between. Then I went in with a black paint marker from Dollar Tree and added little black touches to them. I redotted their eyes, I did their black beaks for the duck and the chicken, I did the horns on the cow. Then I went in with a paintbrush and just touched up a little bit more and used the end to make the eyes a little bigger because they were a little small, and I did paint over them and redid them. But then I used another small paintbrush and just filled in anywhere that I needed to fill in that the paint marker couldn't get close enough to. And that was about it for this DIY. I think they're super cute. It was super easy. And sometimes that's all you need to do with a DIY is just give it a little update, a little freshening up, and it's good to go. That's what today's video is all about. I'm bringing you 5 quick thrift flips. I'm thinking of possibly starting a series of these. You'll have to let me know what you think about that idea in the comments below. They'd be quick, easy flips that anybody could do. For DIY number 2, I'm starting with this cutting board basket storage thingy-majiggy. Great words, I know. Anyways, I started by taking it all apart and giving it a good clean. Then I went in with some cream just because I wanted to use it up and some white acrylic paint from Dollar Tree, and I gave the front and sides 2 coats. It didn't have to be solid coats though, but I gave them 2 coats, lay it dry in between. I just wanted it to be more of a brighter, whiter color underneath the tissue paper that we are going to decoupage onto the front. So then I took this I was gonna say floral. Then I took this leafy tissue paper that I got from Dollar Tree in their party section and cut out a piece that was roughly just a little bigger than the board, and used my glue stick to glue it down. I find I get no wrinkles. It's a great smooth finish when I use the glue stick. I just glued it down, and you have some wiggle room to play with it and readjust it, as you will see me doing. Then I took a sanding block from Dollar Tree and a nail file from Dollar Tree and begun trimming the edges of the tissue paper that were left over. I do this in a downward motion away from the piece that I am filing. The nail file worked well in little areas, and also I will show you that it works wonders in little spots that obviously the big sponge will not fit into, so take that as a tip if you will. Nail files are really good for that, and you can get them in packs of like 30 at the Dollar Tree, so it would do the whole edges if that's all you had, but the bigger sponge is much quicker for the outside edges. Then I went over the entire piece with the Deco Art matte decoupage. I have mixed feelings about this. I wanted to do it because I wanted it to make the piece last longer. However, this is where the bubbles and wrinkles occurred. I don't know. Am I the only one that struggles with this? Do other people struggle with this? You gotta let me know. Maybe one day I'll figure out how to do it perfectly, if there is a perfectly. Anyways, back to the DIY. I took some jute rope that I got from Dollarama. Again, I have said in the past it's bigger than the jute twine and smaller than the nautical rope at Dollar Tree, and tied on a hanger onto the top of the cutting board. Then with the wire basket piece nicely painted and dry, I took some Dollar Tree burlap ribbon and hot glued it around the front of the basket. I just hot glued it along the back, then put little dots along the crossbars of the basket, and then glued it again along the back with a strip of hot glue. After trimming off the excess burlap ribbon, I then went back in with my hot glue gun and tacked down any stray strands of the burlap ribbon that needed to be reattached, such as the pieces along the bottom. And then I also put a little bit of hot glue all the way along the top on both sides of the edges at the back, just to help reinforce the hold of the burlap ribbon. Using the screws that came with the basket to hold it on, I just felt around and re-pierced the holes with the screw in my fingers. Then I go to attempt to reattach the basket back on. This was my error, so do maybe as I say, not as I do. Once I put the burlap on, I couldn't fit my screwdriver in to reach the bottom screws to put them back in. So I attempted to do it with a little piece, a little bit, and my fingers, but I kept dropping it and fumbling, and there was some swear words letting go. Anyways, I decided, okay, I'm gonna have to, how can I do this with the least damage possible? So I just lifted up the burlap ribbon a bit at the bottoms and used my screwdriver to reach the screws and put them back in. That way, the top ones, obviously, I was able to reach without having to readjust anything. And that was it for DIY number 2. I hope you like it. Today's video is part of an open playlist. It's the third Thursday Thrift Flips, hosted by Tammie from the Rusted Willow and Elizabeth from Southern Gmore Girls. Both these ladies are super talented, and I'll have their links to their channels in the description box below for you to check out, as well as a link to the playlist to see what all the other talented creators have come up with for this flippin' Thursday. For DIY number 3, started with this key that I thrifted while away on vacation at the cottage, and I gave it 2 good coats, letting them dry in between, of the Rust-Oleum 2x spray paint in matte white. When it was dry, I took some of these transfers that I got from Dollar Tree and cut out the word home. Then I placed it on to the neck of the key and just used a bit of dowel that I had cut off. Unfortunately, the transfer stuck to the plastic transfer part stuck to my finger, making some cracks in the transfer, as you saw there. Anyways, to cover it up and make it less noticeable and blend in, I just took a gel pen from Dollar Tree and filled it in, and I don't think you would tell the difference. And look at how quick and easy this was. I think it's updated, fresh, new, and ready to go to a new home. So I guess I've been saying for DIY number 1, DIY number 2. Really, I guess I should have been saying for flip number 1, flip number 2. So for flip number 4, I started with these little wooden ducks that I believe are is a napkin holder. I'm not too sure. If you know what it is, by all means, let me know in the comments below. But I started by taking them apart. So I unscrewed them from the bottom, then took off the bows that they had around their necks. I gave them a good clean, and then I began with this Oops paint that I got from Canadian Tire. It's actually an outdoor latex paint, but it was in a black, and I wanted to try painting some of these older wooden pieces black before white to see if that would help to stop any of the tannins bleeding through the white paint. So I gave everything a good coat. That's really all it needed. The black covered very nicely. Then I went in with the Rust-Oleum 2x spray paint in matte white out in my garage. Please do it in a well-ventilated area. Use protection as needed. I gave it 2 coats because it's really humid here. It did not want to dry. It took quite a long time. Anyways, once it was dry, I brought it back in, and using my sanding sponge from Dollar Tree, I began distressing this piece. So I went around the edges of the base piece, really focusing my attention on each ridge or ledge of the piece. Then I also went in with my fingernail and was able to distress it that way. I was able to scrape some of the white paint off carefully to expose some of the black, and then just went over those areas with my sanding sponge to help blend them in. I also used the sanding sponge to distress the ducks on both the front and back side. Then went in with the back of my small paintbrush and dotted on some eyes, both on the back and front of the ducks again. And then once this was dry, I reassembled the piece, screwing them back on. I just looked for whichever side I felt looked nicest of the duck. Whether there was a good side or not, who knows? But I felt there was. So whichever side looked best, I had that facing outwards. And obviously both ducks were facing in opposite directions. I just reattached them with their screws. Then with some jute twine from Dollar Tree, I tied a simple shoelace bow, just making 2 loops, crossing them, putting one under the other and pulling it through. Then when I tighten, I like to hold on to the center of the bow, pull them to smaller and then bigger. And then once this was done, I just trimmed the ends with my scissors and put a dab of hot glue onto the back of the bow and adhered it to the duck's neck, and then just trimmed again the ends to size to what I felt looked best. I just repeated this process, making a second bow, and then adhered it to the outside of the second duck. For the last quick flip, we're going to, oh, that's a tongue twister. For the last quick flip, I'm going to start with this picture that I thrifted from a local thrift store, and started by removing the tag, which didn't want to come off easily. I had to use my heat gun and really work at it. Once I got the tag off, I gave it a good clean all over. Then I went out in my garage and used my Rust-Oleum 2 times spray paint in flat white, I've been saying matte white, and gave it 3 coats. Then once it was dry, I brought it back in, and using some of this buffalo checked ribbon that I got from Michael's in their Christmas section, I definitely did not pay full price. I paid 60% off for it, and with calculating it, it actually is a better deal than Dollar Tree's, but I think it's only when it's 60% off is it a better deal. But I got it. Anyways, I like it. So I started by measuring out how much I needed by putting it around the picture, then folded in one of the ends to make it a finished edge and hot glued the rough end inwards. Next, with my scissors, I just trimmed off the opposite end just to make it straight. I started by putting a dot of hot glue in the center of the picture underneath the spout, then glued the ribbon there, then wrapped it around, and it had to kind of be on an angle for it to lay flat around the picture. So here you kind of see that it's overlapped. I made sure that it overlapped in the middle of the handle at the top, but it wouldn't meet at the bottom. Unfortunately, the handle's in the way and it's not the easiest to see, but just know that it wasn't an exact parallel all the way around. It does curve down, and that way it was nice and flat around the fronts and sides. Then I took more of these rub-on transfers and cut out the words cherish life. I did do love life, but I thought the bigger word of cherish looked a little nicer. And again, unfortunately, I fumbled with this rub-on transfer and got the H stuck to my finger this time. So anyways, fear not, it is fixable. So I just went in, rubbed it on with the piece of dowel that I had laying around, same as in the previous DIY or the previous flip. It's a flip. I rubbed on the word cherish, then I rubbed on the word life, and then to fix the H, and I think I messed up a little bit of the I when I was rubbing it on. My fingernail also did the trick. I just used my fingernail for the word for the life transfer, but again, I just went back in with my gel pen from Dollar Tree and filled in the pieces that were missing from the H in the word cherish, and I think no one would be any wiser that there was an error unless you were inspecting it with a magnifying glass. Anyways, I put it on to one of these wooden tags that I got from Dollar Tree and attached it with some jute, with the jute hanger that came with the tag, and then just glued it with a small amount of hot glue onto the ribbon so that it would sit facing out so that you could see it nicely from the front. I really hoped you liked today's quick flips, and if you want to see more, please let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and if you want to see more of this content, like more DIYs and thrift flips, why don't you consider hitting that big red subscribe button to be notified anytime I upload a new video. Bye!